What's up, Toes? CameraHorder11 here, and today I really want to review Equestria Girls because I'm very far behind, and now that it's coming to DVD and Blu-ray, I feel like it's the perfect time. I felt like the review would be slightly irrelevant a couple weeks ago, but it would have been really relevant like a month ago or so. But anyway, let's get into it. What we're playing here is Dash for the Crown, and I pre-recorded this, so it's very speedrun-esque, so don't worry if you can't keep up with it, but it's not too bad. It's a very simple game that can be found on Hasbro's website, and I'll always throw a link in the description so you can play it yourself. And without further ado, let's get into that review I was talking about. Let's start with something very simple, like the plot. The plot is, it starts off as a very stereotypical plot where, well, I guess the beginning starts in the Crystal Empire or Ponyville or whatever you want to call it. Starts in the Pony world in Equestria, and then it moves into the human world, which everyone knows about. That's kind of how the big controversy spreads, like do we want this, do we not want this? But I think it was a very good movie, and we definitely wanted this. But anyway, so they go into the human world, and that's when the plot starts to get very high school stereotypical plot line, where there's a very annoying girl who kind of rules the school, and everyone has to answer to her, and she's got to be overthrown by this new kid who is just learning the ropes of the school. So it's very I've seen this before. I know this plot line. I can't think of any particular example off the top of my head, but I know for a fact I've seen this before. But the cool thing about this movie is that it's not just it. It doesn't stop there. There's epic twists at the end, and throughout the middle, something's not right. The villain's more than what she leads on to be, and it's just the villain's always a step ahead of you, and you're always a step ahead of Twilight. And it's just really interesting to see the relationships between the characters, because they're not what you'd expect them to be, even though the plot line is somewhat cookie cutter in a sense. But like I said, it's not really, because there's enough stuff to distinguish it from the stereotype. But I'm just saying that's there, so it's easy to recognize, but it's better to get into. So anyway, next, the animation. The animation's spot on. I mean, it's MLP animation, it's DHX, it's everything we know. The only thing that seemed different to me is the animation of the dogs, which seemed very Pound Puppy / Littlest Pet Shop-esque, but there's not that many. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 dogs, and I mean, Spike's a dog the whole time, but Spike seems a little bit different. But anyway, it doesn't feel like, Winona looks different than something you'd see in Littlest Pet Shop. I just feel like the dogs lean more to the something you'd see in Littlest Pet Shop. But anyway, still looks good. I think it all falls under DHX, but they do a fantastic job, and I'm very excited. I mean, the characters look just as well as humans as they do like ponies, and it's not a disappointment. It's not a squandering of their talents. It's something definitely amazing, and DHX proved that they can animate stuff on 2 legs just as well as they can do on 4. So really good execution there, and I mean, flawless, I'd say. And little things, I'll give you an example. There's a part in the movie where Snips and Snails, which they take a little bit more prominent role than they normally do, but Snips and Snails are walking around, and well, they're sneaking around, and they have to get behind Twilight and spy on her. And there's a point where they're sneaking in the library, and they have to be quiet, so they do the sneaking motion, and Snails gets on the ground and moves like a snail, which I thought was funny. But then Snips is moving his arms and legs like a scissor, and I didn't realize that until I listened a little bit more, and you could actually hear snipping noises, and I'm like, that's really cleverly done. I didn't notice that their motions actually reflected what their talent was, or at least what their cutie mark is. And I thought that was really interesting, because I believe you don't see their cutie mark, you just kind of have to recognize them by their voices and their appearances, because all the ponies look relatively similar. Snips is orange, Snails is a bluish, or no, mess that up. Snips is bluish and Snails is orangish, and all the ponies have their particular colors. But anyway, moving on to segue from that sound bite to music. The music is really nice because it's really catchy, and it's very PMV-esque. I always say that, I said that in my review of the last episode of season 3. There is some PMV elements thrown into the episode. The same goes for this movie. At the beginning, it starts off with a very dubsteppy, brony-esque music intro, and it's also got some PMV elements in that. Silhouette ponies for the intro when they're lining up all the voice actors' names, and it's just really nice to see that community slash professional like interaction. Like I'm sure none of those things would have happened had there not been like PMVs and things like that already in the community, because it's like, well, sometimes it's hard to think of stuff like that, and they probably would have just like listed the names across the screen or something. But because of the community and that sort of relationship, I think it was easier for them to make a very interesting opening rather than just listing the names as the movie progressed. But another thing with the beginning of the intro is there was some cool references. Like right at the beginning you get a Transformers reference like 30 seconds in, and you get Pinkie Pie being as awesome as ever. And throughout the movie, while Twilight's in the human world, there's a lot of references. There's references to real life stuff like YouTube, and I could have sworn like Pinkie had a phone that was like running Android or some iOS or something, like the way the texting screen looked. And you know, they got texting, they got email, they got all this stuff that they don't have in Ponyville, and it's just nice to see. I always love seeing how stuff like that reflects into movies, because you always feel like movies are separation from like the real world, but then when you see a movie use something like Facebook or Twitter, it's just really interesting to see. And in this case YouTube, which the Cutie Mark Crusaders were making that look real good, and it's just really exciting. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. And aside from just like references to culture in the real world, you got references from in MLP. You have like all the background ponies representing, and you got they're accurate representations, which is really nice. You got DJ Pon 3 making a not so very prominent role, but she does have a role where she's very visible. She's you know, easily visible, and it's really nice to see her in action, and that she was given something to do, not just standing in the background but actually doing something. And if you're really into fan shoutouts, I'd definitely watch till the end of the credits, but I guess that doesn't really matter because I don't think it's in theaters anymore. But obviously watch the credits when you're watching the Blu-ray. Don't just go back to the main menu, because it's definitely something worth seeing at the end. And the characters, I've sort of like, I've talked about everything else, but I haven't really talked about the characters. I mentioned Pinkie Pie a minute ago or so, but it's really nice to see the characters like in their element, even though it's not like, even though they're still humans, they still feel like Pinkie Pie, still feel like Fluttershy, still feel like Rarity and Applejack and Rainbow Dash. It's all the characters, and they're as real as ever, even though they're not their actual pony forms. And it's really nice to start getting attached to new characters that we've never seen before. And there's a particular cult character that we see in the like at the beginning of the movie, and like you don't really know much about him, but then you see him in the human like version, and you start getting attached to that one, and then you see him again at the end. It just solidifies that he's really important, and won't spoil everything, but there's definitely new characters that you're gonna get attached to, and a new villain that's really epic, and I'm just hope to see more of in the future, because I don't think we've seen the end of any particular villain. So back to the main six. I mean, they did feel so much like the pony versions, and it's like you could barely tell the difference, but then when you see their conflicts, that's where the differences start to come in. You don't really think that Pinkie and Fluttershy would have so much conflict, though their personalities are so different. They get along so much differently in Ponyville, and it's like certain things make them tick in Ponyville, but here different things made them tick, and I thought that was really interesting. They didn't just take a pony like plot line and then give it a human animation twist and just call it a movie. They actually made different conflicts among the characters, and they're not all friends at the beginning, which is really interesting, and it's sort of a plot within itself that Twilight has to kind of bring them together before she could solve her own problem. And it's something that I really enjoyed seeing, and it wasn't just a straight linear path to the main storyline. It was like this extra stuff that I thought was really interesting, and sometimes is even more entertaining than the main storyline, because you get to see the characters first separated, then you get to see them come together, and you get to see the process that Twilight went through adjusting to the human world while she was helping her friends, and then you get a couple awesome songs in between. So it's a really great way to like sum up the whole movie. There's a lot of good conflict, there's a lot of good plot, and there's a there's a lot of good plot, and then there's a lot of good songs. So it's just an overall great experience. I don't really give number reviews to anything I review, but this is a very good movie, and I definitely recommend watching. If you don't have a Blu-ray, pick it up on DVD, and if you don't really buy DVDs, rent it if possible. But definitely going to be picking it up on Blu-ray when I get the chance, and maybe giving a review for that, because I know it's got some pretty entertaining special features or bonus features, whatever you want to call them. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys later. Camera Hoarder 11 out.